So before I kick this off, just want to say there'll probably be some minor spoilers for the game, mainly just visual ones like armor, stuff like that. If you want to avoid that, it's probably not the video to watch. I suggest you go somewhere else. But with that out of the way, we can get started. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is the latest installment in the acclaimed Zelda franchise, and obviously has a lot of hype surrounding it. Granted, the anticipation is more leaned onto the Switch version, but for this review I'll be focusing on the Wii U version of the game. This is definitely to offer a perspective on the lesser reviewed platform, and is certainly 100% not a case of me not having enough money for the Switch at launch. That would be ridiculous, leave me alone. So one of the most noteworthy things about Breath of the Wild is easily the open world. Like, it's huge, and it's laid out to you from the get-go. Obviously you can't go everywhere just yet, but for the most part it's no hand-holding, no intrusive linear tutorial, just kind of figure it out, just get going. And I love that. It's such a substantial breath of fresh air in contrast to, say, earlier games. We have the typical intro section, it's usually have like an hour maybe tutorial or something like that. It's just nice to just start up the game and pretty much go right away. And the world itself, it's pretty damn big, with it's got an expansive grassland reaching out to all the unique environments. Like, whether it be snow mountains, waterfalls, or a literal volcano, like, the mere scope of what the game tries to achieve with its map is astonishing, honestly. Especially with such a small file size. I think it's like 13 gigabytes or something? And it's on relatively weak hardware, so it's pretty impressive. I mean, obviously an open world is nothing without, like, something to do, so it wouldn't be fun. So the designers have ensured a level of density to keep it from becoming bland. So everywhere you go, you're likely only a stone's throw away from a bokoblin camp, a shrine, mining spot, stable, things like that. And this is pretty important, considering the sheer length of some of your journeys, so it really ensures the boredom gets minimized as much as possible. And you couple all this with, like, a fun little cooking mechanic, hunting, foraging, temperature stuff, you got yourself a world really just ripe for adventure. And it's a really damn gorgeous world, I've got to be honest. Like, landscapes are dropped straight out of a watercolor painting. Just running through the tall grass with, like, the rising sun beaming down on you is, like, it's crazy good looking. Granted, I must admit there are instances where the washed out nature of the art style and the kind of samey areas of the game can just end up looking a bit bland on the eyes. It's not very visually stimulating. But this is mostly kept to a minimum when outside of the main, like, mountainy areas, where everything just kind of blends into each other. And of course, it's still Zelda at heart, so regardless of all these new additions, you have to have dungeons, puzzles, and combat, the latter of which being a noteworthy departure from the norm, actually, with highly technical concepts like perfect dodging and parrying, creating a layer of depth like you don't really see in the other games, and it's really good. The other games I feel were largely just kind of solid, whereas this feels like it has more technicality to it. I feel more rewarded by things I do right. And another thing actually branching off from that is the weapon degradation, which creates a lot of scenarios where you're going to have to pick up some enemy stuff to get by in a lot of fights, sometimes even during the fight. And I really love how my Link felt so unique to everyone else's during the adventure. Like, I'd usually be wearing whatever I could find, so it creates a really cool sense of improvisation. So you see that, you pick it up, like, I need this. This is how I just defeated this enemy, I'll pick up his weapon, he might drop a shield I need. I really felt like an experienced adventurer who had, like, a mashup of stuff taken from different events, and there's, like, a little story behind some of it. And it's great. I definitely feel like that was probably an intended goal of the dev team, and I think they did that really well. And the attention to detail with things like that is, like, genuinely one of the strongest aspects of the game. Like, you can light fires by dropping some flint and wood and just hitting it with your sword. You can cook food by dropping it onto a hot mountain floor. And you can even take all your clothes off and make people horribly uncomfortable. It is all I've ever wanted. And obviously, keeping in line with the tradition, we've got a Zelda story. And despite taking more of a backseat this time, we still get one to hang on to. And this probably has some of my favourite characters in any Zelda game, honestly, with moments I'm bound to keep with me when I reflect on it in the future. It's pretty alright. It's certainly not amazing, but it does a good job of conveying a new take on Zelda herself, Like, I feel her characterization was pretty damn strong in this one. And it offers a good perspective from the other races in Hyrule. I'm of course talking about like the Rito, the Gorons, the Zora, and the Gerudo, which honestly have my favourite designs in the series so far in regard to their previous iterations. And I loved being around them and talking to them, and I'm so glad they play a role in this one. Without spoilers, I can say the story does a pretty solid job, which is fine. Like I said, it's definitely not the forefront of this one, so it's not too much of an issue. So all this must sound pretty great, right? It's a fantastic game. I mean, yeah, it does, but personally, I found a fair few issues that stop this game from reaching its full potential for me. And it might be easier to just blast through some of these, because I've been writing kind of a laundry list as I played the game. So, without further ado, we might as well just get this out of the way now. Why can't you call your horse from anywhere instead of just being horribly stranded in the middle of nowhere to just tediously walk to the nearest stable? Why is the button placement for jump and run positioned in such a way that I can't really run and jump comfortably? Why are so many of the side quests just a case of bring me this amount of this thing please? The world is kind of too big. I often find myself horribly against travelling by foot when I know 70% of my encounters are they're gonna be the same as pretty much the last ones I've had. It's pretty much always going to be full of annoyingly high enemy locations, or more bokoblin camps instead of anything new. What does rain really add to climbing other than to make it horribly annoying? Why are some of the puzzles seemingly impossible to complete sometimes? Like, seriously, I couldn't do anything here. I had to reset the mission and try again, because I did things in a way that the level design just didn't account for. And here, where the only way I could seemingly do it was by awkwardly climbing onto a rock? I mean, surely there must have been another way to do it, but it didn't feel very intuitive, and the fact that I did it through such obtuse means. Why is some of the level design so damn bland to go through? Like a pretty much straight stretch of just go this way, kill this enemy, go further, kill more enemies. Why is some of the level design so unnecessarily punishing, like this bit? Why do weapons, like, break in a couple fights? Look, who makes these? Why do they suck at making them? Fire them! There are some weapons that are like, here is this weapon that has existed for like 100 years. It broke in 2 fights. It's terrible. It's shoddy craftsmanship. Why are there these, like, Ubisoft-esque towers in the game? They're horribly boring to climb up, and they just unlock more of the map, which feels pretty essential, so I feel like I need to do them all. But it's horrible to do them all. So why can't you, like, access your inventory when you need to replace a weapon? When you don't have room for the new one, say if you've just opened a chest? Like, why do you need to back out and drop one first? Surely a replacement system could be working here. Who thought tedious tailing sections was fun? Why can I only have one save file in the year of our Lord 2017? Why are there so many shrines? Like, they're so visually unengaging, and I feel like they're a poor man's replacement of satisfying dungeon designs. This is coupled with some pretty boring main ones as well, and this is a real shame considering the strength of a lot of the dungeons in the same series it comes from. Okay, so this is only some of the laundry list of issues, but yeah, they aren't game breaking, but they kind of accumulate and get on my nerves a bit, and they feel like they get in the way. It feels like with the huge scope of the world they've built here, they may have gotten tied up with making the larger aspects work, with little time spent streamlining a lot of the individual smaller features. You've got all this, like, combined with the exclusive issues to the Wii U version as well. Like, sure the Switch has some frame rate drops too, but this version feels like it has a pretty abundant amount of them, and it creates some pretty harsh immersion breaking slowdown. I've had some pretty lengthy freezing sections in the game actually as well, which honestly didn't make it a solid experience. Plus, sometimes the game just decides to do this. Also, some of the shrines use motion controls, which, of course, means I need to dump the Wii U Pro controller and pull out the bulky gamepad for sections that really feel like they weren't designed with such a hefty device in mind. And this is despite being an originally Wii U title. You have no gamepad implementation other than this either. Like, no extra inventory or map or anything cool like Wind Waker HD, and I believe Twilight Princess HD. I mean, at 720p you've got some pretty blurry visuals as well, but it's still a fine looking game. The issues I have with the visuals are mainly the heavily compressed textures that you can really see, I think in both versions of the game really. And there is some pretty shockingly bad texture filtering. Like, you can see the line where the textures like sharpen up, and it's incredibly jarring when you notice it. So all in all, it's a totally serviceable version, but certainly not the best. If you have the money or are willing to drop the money, maybe invest in the Switch version or wait. It's honestly up to you. If you're chomping at the bit for Zelda, the Wii U version is fine. It's totally adequate. Yeah, so that's Breath of the Wild. It's a pretty damn good game, but as I see it, not one without some issues holding it back. And I'd really love to see another game with similar ideas for the next one, maybe? I mean, I'm very comfortable giving Breath of the Wild an 8 out of 10. It's a damn solid game, and a damn solid Zelda, but I reckon they could have done much better. So yeah, that was my review of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I have felt like a horrible contrarian this entire time because everyone's singing its praises, and I'm a terrible person, and I just don't understand, and I think the children are the ones who are wrong. Goodbye. I hate myself.